First contact and underestimation. The void of space stretched endlessly before the 5 human vessels. They were not impressive by any cosmic standard, each barely half a kilometer in length, their hulls marked with the scars of meteoric dust and the subtle patchwork of repairs. Together, they formed humanity's 3rd exploratory fleet, venturing farther from Earth than any humans had gone before. On the bridge of the flagship Horizon, Captain Amara Okafor stood with hands clasped behind her back, her dark eyes fixed on the main display. At 43, she had the weathered look of someone who had spent most of her life in space, her close-cropped hair prematurely gray at the temples. The quiet hum of the ship's systems provided a comforting background to her thoughts. "Anything from the probes, Dr. Hyland?" she asked. The science officer looked up from his station. "Yes, Captain. The data is extraordinary. We've detected an artificial structure in orbit around the 5th planet. It's massive, at least 20 kilometers in diameter." A murmur passed through the bridge crew. After 2 centuries of space exploration, humanity had encountered simple microbial life on Mars and Europa, even primitive aquatic creatures on Enceladus. But never intelligence, never civilization. "Put it on screen," Okafor ordered. The main display flickered, showing a gleaming, ring-shaped structure. Its silver surface reflected the light from the system's star, creating a halo effect that made the artificial nature of the object undeniable. "Are there any signs of activity?" asked Commander Chen, the tactical officer. "Yes," replied Hyland, his voice tight with both excitement and trepidation. "We're detecting energy signatures, communication signals, and movement. There are smaller objects, likely ships, coming and going from docking ports." Okafor took a deep breath. This was the moment humanity had been preparing for since the first radio telescopes scanned the skies. "First contact with an alien civilization. Send the first contact package on all frequencies and approaches," she said. The standardized greeting, developed over decades by linguists, mathematicians, and anthropologists, contained basic mathematical principles, images of humans, and simple language lessons. It had been meticulously designed to be as non-threatening and comprehensible as possible. "Message sent, Captain," reported Lieutenant Rivera from Communications. Less than an hour later, the response came, not as a return message, but as ships. Massive vessels, each at least 3 times the size of the Horizon, emerged from behind the planet. Their design was unlike anything human engineers had conceived. Elongated teardrop shapes with crystalline protrusions that glowed with internal light. 5 ships approaching, Captain, Chen reported. "Their energy readings are off the charts. Maintain position," Okafor ordered. "Keep broadcasting the first contact package." "Captain," Rivera's voice was tense. "We're receiving a transmission. The AI translation matrix is processing it now." The bridge speakers crackled with a voice that sounded like glass grinding against metal, overlaid with the flat tones of the AI translator. "Unknown vessels. You have entered territory claimed by the Valeran Empire. Identify yourselves and state your purpose." Okafor straightened. "This is Captain Amara Okafor of the Earth vessel Horizon. We are an exploratory mission seeking peaceful contact with other intelligent species. We come with respect and in friendship." There was a pause before the reply came. "Scanning indicates primitive technology and minimal weaponry. Your species is unknown to us. You will power down your engines and prepare to be boarded for assessment." Chen bristled. "Captain, that's not a request. It's a demand." Okafor's expression remained calm, but her eyes hardened. "Lieutenant Rivera, respond." "We respectfully decline to power down our systems or submit to boarding. We propose instead a diplomatic meeting between representatives of our peoples." The response was immediate. "Your proposal is rejected. Your technological level does not warrant diplomatic status. Submit or be removed." Before Okafor could respond, alarms blared across the bridge. Energy buildup in the lead alien vessel. Chen shouted, "They're targeting us." Defensive measures. Okafor ordered calmly. Formation Epsilon. No offensive action. The 5 human ships moved with practiced precision, forming a pentagonal defensive arrangement. When the alien vessel fired, a lance of purple energy streaked toward the horizon, only to dissipate against an invisible barrier 10 meters from the hull. On the command ship of the Valeran Patrol Squadron, High Commander Kelzed's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, an expression of confusion among his species. "Report," he demanded, his voice echoing in the cavernous bridge. Sub-Commander Nirax consulted her display. The energy strike was completely absorbed. "High Commander, no damage to the primitive vessel." "Impossible," Kelzed said. "Their hulls showed no advanced shielding technology." "Scan again." "The scans are consistent, High Commander. Their vessels appear primitive, but—" Nirax hesitated. "Something is interfering with our detailed scans. There's a field around their ships that our sensors cannot penetrate." Kelzed's skin flushed a deeper blue in irritation. "Fire again. All ships, full spread." 5 Valeran vessels fired simultaneously, creating a web of energy beams that converged on the human ships. Again, the attacks dissipated harmlessly. Back on the horizon, Okafor watched the alien vessels with a grim expression. Status of the adaptive shield matrix. "Operating at 89% efficiency," Captain, reported Chen. "The alien weapons are powerful but predictable. The quantum field is adjusting to their frequency patterns with each attack." The adaptive shield technology was humanity's greatest defensive innovation, a system that learned from enemy attacks and reconfigured its quantum fields to counter them with increasing efficiency. It was the product of decades of research following the Mars colony disaster of 2187, when an unexpected solar flare had killed thousands of colonists. Humanity had learned the hard way that space was unforgiving. Their technology had evolved accordingly. "They're preparing another volley," Chen warned. "And they're moving to surround us." Okafor nodded. "Time for Phase 2. Deploy the microdrones. Non-lethal protocols only." From each human vessel, thousands of devices no larger than grains of rice suddenly emerge, forming shimmering clouds around the ships. Propelled by tiny ion engines and guided by swarm intelligence algorithms, they rapidly spread toward the Valeran vessels. On the Valeran command ship, alarms blared. "Unknown objects approaching," Nirax reported, her voice rising. "Tens of thousands of them." "Destroy them," Kelzed ordered. The Valeran ships fired their point defense systems, vaporizing hundreds of the microdrones. But for each one destroyed, hundreds more slipped through, attaching themselves to the hulls of the alien vessels. "What are they doing?" Kelzed demanded as the tiny devices settled onto his ship's exterior. His answer came moments later as systems throughout his vessel began to fail. Weapons, engines, and communications went offline in rapid succession. The microdrones had located and disabled key external components without causing structural damage or endangering the crews. Within minutes, all 5 Valeran ships floated powerless, their only functioning systems being life support and minimal internal communications. Captain Okafor opened a channel to the lead Valeran vessel. "Valeran command ship, this is Captain Okafor. Your vessels have been temporarily disabled. We have taken this action to prevent further hostilities while preserving your crew's safety. We still wish to establish peaceful communication." On the Valeran ship, Kelzed's skin had turned pale with shock and rage. "How?" he demanded of his officers. "How did these primitives defeat us?" No one had an answer. Their scans had shown ships with technology centuries behind their own, yet these supposedly primitive humans had neutralized 5 Valeran warships without firing a single destructive shot. A junior science officer named Halon spoke up hesitantly. "High Commander, I believe we have gravely misjudged these humans." "Explain," Kelzed growled. "Our scans detected what appeared to be primitive technology because we were looking for advancement patterns similar to our own. The humans appear to have followed a completely different technological path." Talon's voice grew stronger as he continued. Their vessels don't show high energy outputs because they've developed efficiency rather than raw power. Their hulls don't display conventional shield emitters because their defensive technology operates on principles we haven't explored. Kelzid stared at the view screen, where the 5 human ships maintained their formation, waiting patiently. These are not the actions of primitives, he finally admitted. These are the actions of a species that has learned restraint along with power. He opened a communication channel. Captain Okafor of Earth, I am High Commander Kelzid of the Valeran Empire. It seems we have misunderstood each other. Perhaps diplomatic discussions would be appropriate after all. Light years away, in the central systems of the Valeran Empire, news of the encounter with the unknown human ships spread rapidly through the hierarchies of power. The Valeran Empire had dominated their region of space for millennia, their technological supremacy unchallenged by the handful of younger species they had encountered and subsequently subjugated. In the Imperial Palace on Valera Prime, Supreme Commander Azarak received the report with growing anger. 5 patrol vessels disabled without casualties, or a single shot fired by the alien ships. It was unprecedented. It was humiliating. Assemble the Imperial fleet, he ordered. These humans must learn their place in the cosmic order. The Valeran Empire had never faced a true challenge to their supremacy. They were about to discover what happened when they underestimated humanity. The turning point. The diplomatic vessel Unity drifted in neutral space between the main human fleet and the assembled might of the Valeran Empire. Inside its conference chamber, Captain Okafor sat across from High Commander Kelzid, both surrounded by their respective advisors. The tension was palpable. Your empire's demands are unreasonable, Okafor stated firmly. Earth will not accept protectorate status or restrictions on our technological development. Kelzid's upper eyes narrowed while his lower ones remained fixed on the human captain. The Supreme Commander has been generous in his offer. Many species would be grateful for our protection. We protect ourselves, Okafor replied simply. As we demonstrated. The diplomatic meeting had been ongoing for 3 days with little progress. Behind the scenes, both sides prepared for the possibility of conflict. The main human fleet, 27 ships in total, had arrived from the nearest colony system. It was still laughably small compared to the 300 vessels the Valerans had assembled, but numbers had never been humanity's advantage. Among the Valeran contingent sat Science Officer Talon, who had been promoted after correctly analyzing the humans' capabilities during their first encounter. Unlike most of his colleagues, he found these humans fascinating rather than threatening. Their approach to technology, problem-solving, and even their social structures were unlike anything in Valeran experience. Perhaps, Talon suggested, speaking out of turn in a way that made several senior officers bristle, we should focus less on what humans cannot do and more on what we might learn from each other. Supreme Commander Azarak, who had joined the negotiations via holographic projection, dismissed the suggestion with a wave of his upper limb. The humans have demonstrated certain technological quirks. Nothing that justifies treating them as equals. Okafor smiled slightly. Then you still don't understand what you're facing, Commander. The negotiations ended without resolution. As the human delegation prepared to return to their ships, Talon approached Dr. Hyland, the science officer from the horizon. Your captain speaks with unusual confidence for someone so vastly outnumbered, Talon observed. Hyland studied the Valeran scientist. Throughout our history, humans have often been outnumbered. It's rarely been decisive. Why is that, do you think? Talon asked. Hyland considered the question. Maybe because we evolved as persistence hunters on a world full of creatures stronger and faster than ourselves. We learned to overcome through endurance, cooperation, and creative thinking rather than raw strength. Before Talon could respond, alarms blared throughout the diplomatic vessel. Both officers rushed to their respective commanders. Supreme Commander Azarak has terminated negotiations. Kelzid informed his staff. The fleet has been ordered to secure the human vessels. Aboard the Horizon, Okafor received the news with calm resignation. It seems the Valerans have made their choice. All ships execute Operation Mosaic. The 27 human vessels began to move in what appeared to be random directions. To the Valeran tacticians, it looked like panic or a failed attempt to escape. Their massive fleet moved to encircle the scattered human ships. They flee in disorder, as Zarok observed from his command ship, as expected when faced with true power. Capture their vessels intact if possible. Their technology may have some salvageable elements. On the bridge of his science vessel, Talon watched the human movements with growing concern. "High Commander," he communicated to Kelzad, "I don't believe they're fleeing or disorganized. These movements follow a pattern I cannot yet discern." His warning came too late. The human ships suddenly released what appeared to be thousands of small satellites. Each device activated, creating a network of quantum entanglement fields that linked together in a complex three-dimensional grid. "What are they doing?" Azarok demanded as his sensors registered the energy pattern forming throughout the engagement space. The answer came as the human ships fired their primary weapons for the first time. Instead of targeting the Valeran vessels directly, they fired into the quantum grid they had created. The energy was captured, amplified, and redirected by the network, emerging at dozens of precisely calculated points throughout the Valeran formation. Shields failed. Propulsion systems went offline. Communication arrays melted. Within minutes, 80 Valeran ships were effectively neutralized without a single one being destroyed. Impossible. Azarok raged as his fleet's formation collapsed into chaos. Their weapons cannot be so precise or powerful. But the humans weren't finished. Their ships regrouped with astonishing speed, executing maneuvers that seemed to anticipate the Valeran counter-moves. It was as if they were fighting with perfect knowledge of their enemy's tactics. In truth, they were. The micro-drones deployed during the first encounter had gathered extensive data on Valeran technology, command structures, and tactical doctrines. Human AIs had analyzed this information, identifying patterns and vulnerabilities that the Valerans themselves didn't recognize in their own systems. "They're not just fighting us," Talon realized with sudden clarity. "They're solving us like a mathematical problem." The battle continued for hours, but the outcome was never truly in doubt. The Valeran numerical advantage meant nothing against an enemy that could neutralize their ships without destroying them, that could predict their tactics before they executed them, and that operated with a unified purpose no Valeran commander could match. Finally, with over half his fleet disabled and the rest in disarray, Supreme Commander Azarok faced the unthinkable: surrender. His communication to Captain Okafor was brief and devoid of the arrogance that had characterized earlier exchanges. "The Valeran Empire requests cessation of hostilities," he stated formally. Okafor's response was equally direct. "Agreed. We will begin rescue operations for damaged vessels immediately." In the aftermath, as Valeran crews were evacuated from